Okay, we'd like to welcome you here. We appreciate it. Sorry we're just a little bit late getting started, but we'd like to excuse Councilman Miller. He is out of town with his family. And so we'll begin with an invocation by Councilman Jensen, and then Councilwoman Crandall will give us the pledge.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful that we can meet here this evening and discuss some of the affairs of the city. We're grateful for the country that we live in this state of Utah, as well as the neighborhoods that we reside in. We ask that we will be blessed and watched over as we go about our duties, and that we can do those things that would be best for the citizens of this city. These things we pray for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Would you all please rise? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we appreciate you being here. We appreciate your attendance here tonight. If you have interest in making a statement to the council, we welcome it. We'd love to have it. If you'll just go over and talk to Kim, there's a little form to fill out just so that we have it for the record. But we welcome you to come up and do that sort of thing. You can do it right now, and if you want to make a statement, that'd be great. There'll be a time here real soon where you'll have a chance to be able to do that. We'd like to welcome any students or scouts that are here. We always welcome, but during the summertime, not too many people are here for that reason. So, okay, I need a motion for approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda as written.
I'll second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. We'd like to welcome Councilman Snelson. We appreciate him being here.
Let's just stop.
2 weeks ago, we brought him back from the dead because we needed to have him with us. So anyway, he won't say much, but he was involved in a bike accident with a car, and the car won, and he was, broken scapula, sternum.
I keep forgetting, but there were some ribs, a sternum, scapula, collarbone.
And if you keep forgetting, it's probably brain damage too. So yeah.
Drugs or something like that.
Yeah, that's great. All right, good. Well, let's go to the next item on the agenda, and we'll give a chance for the Springville Art Royalty to make a presentation. So we'll turn the time over to them. Emily?
Well, and this is maybe unnecessary because I'm going to almost just immediately turn the time over to Allison, but I wanted to introduce our head of education, Allison Pinniger. And I guess, too, before Allison talks, we've been starting to collect memories of the Spring Salon and the museum in anticipation of the 100th Salon next year. And it's really fun how many of people's memories have an art queen in them. And so the art queen and art royalty is such an important tradition. And Allison will introduce them.
Awesome. Yes, as Emily said, my name's Allison Pinniger. I'm the head of education at the Springville Museum of Art. Thank you so much for having us here. I'm just really thrilled to announce this year's and present this year's Art Royalty. The Art Royalty program has been a tradition of Springville's Art City since 1907. In its early days, the Art Queen and the Art Royalty would raise funds through a penny vote in order to purchase artwork from the Spring Salon. It's an honor to host a program that maintains its legacy of devotion to the arts and evolves as the community and museum progresses through time. Today, the Art Royalty is a substantial volunteer organization, and its members are greatly involved with the museum's events and community programs. They serve as the museum's ambassadors to the community. During a year of service, their responsibilities include assisting with museum and community events, planning teen-centered events for the high school art show, exhibition intake, installations, and so much more. As a museum educator who works with students from across the state, I am always impressed by Springville's youth. It has been such a delight to work with such dedicated and creative teenagers who have an eagerness to serve the city and its citizens. This year, we have another incredible group full of talented, intelligent, hardworking individuals who come together to make a remarkable team. I am so thrilled to work with them throughout this coming school year. I would now like to present the 2023 to 2024 Art Royalty. We have Morgan Boring, Sydney Constantine, Eileen Dominguez, Claire Hafen, who could not be here tonight,
Thank you.
Allison Hawkins, Ashley Johns, Presley Johnson, and Emily Lindsay. Here they all are. And we're just so excited about this group. So thank you so much for having us here, Council and Mayor Packard. We hope you enjoy the gifts.
Well, thank you very much. We really have great honor in having you as royalty at the down at the Art Museum. So thank you so much for taking the time and being a part of that. We hope that it's meaningful for you, and we are so grateful that you would take that time out of your schedule to honor us with your royalty. So again, thank you so much for coming. You work with wonderful people at the Art Museum, and you represent a very prized asset for the city, and so we're very grateful for your representation. So thank you very much.
It's a photo op. Yeah.
Please, yep.
I did go to lunch with Blondie, though, which was good.
So nice. Thank you. I did my hair this morning just for the photo. All right. Okay, we'd open it up for anyone who would like to have a public comment. You're welcome to come up, take 3 or 4 minutes, please. Come right on up and give us your thoughts. If there are 2 of you, you're welcome to take 3 or 4 minutes each. If there's 4 of you, you're welcome to take 3 or 4 minutes each. So, that's okay. It's okay. Right here, just come right up to the podium. We can't take any official action on what you talk about, but you're welcome to make any kind of comment that you'd like. Is this Melissa Brooks? Is that right? Okay, then we'll have Kathy Kendall. Wayne Nelson. Oh, Stephen Brooks. We'll put you right after. You must be related.
He's with me.
All right, sounds good. And then we'll have Wayne Nelson as last. So go right ahead, Melissa.
Okay. I'm speaking in regards to the 620 South Canyon Road intersection that you guys have already discussed that I wasn't aware of. I learned from my husband that received a phone call from Brad Stapley and Jeff Anderson stating that there is going to be a temporary roundabout put in front of our home, and that it wasn't up for discussion, that you guys were moving forward regardless of how we felt as homeowners that are going to be impacted by this roundabout. I'm talking to you today because for 17 years, I have been speaking with Brad Stapley about this issue. He first approached me in 2006, told us not to say anything to our neighbors in regards to this because it hadn't passed. And obviously they found out anyway, and it caused quite the uproar. And over the years, he's promised things, this and that, and then kind of stopped talking to us because he said that it wasn't even something that was going to happen anywhere near like 2 to 7 years, and he just kept saying 2 to 7 years, 2 to 7 years. I spoke to him 2 months ago, and I asked him about this, and he said that no decisions were going to be made anytime soon. That is what he said to me. And then 2 months later, my husband gets a phone call stating that they were doing this. So obviously we're very upset, and I'm trying to compose myself right now. But you have to know that for 17 years, this has impacted us. We've been waiting to get up here and say something about how it's going to alter our family's home. And I need you to see it from our perspective. If it was your home, your family's home, it's more than a temporary thing. And it should have taken longer. And it should have been addressed in a more public way and not behind closed doors. He should have contacted us. Brad should have contacted us and said, they're talking about the roundabout. That's what I asked him. Please be transparent. Please come talk to us. This affects us more than you know, because it was my niece that was hit in front of my house. Lily Warren was my niece. So obviously, we want this to be safe. We want it to be a safe place for kids to cross. We want something to be done, but I don't think it should be rushed, and I don't think it should be temporary. And I think that the residents in that area should have been contacted. We should have been given notice. We should have been included in the decisions. And we weren't. So I don't know where we are right now with, if I'm going to come back next week and this is going to be put in, or if this is actually going to happen before school starts. But I really think that time, 17 years, and this was done in a matter of weeks, I just don't think that's okay. And I would just like you to know that we didn't have a voice in this whatsoever. So I'd like you to take a minute to consider that. No, you're not altering the curb, you said on the podcast. You're not altering the curb. You are putting, I can't remember what that was called, in front of our house. It's going to be in front of our mailbox. I don't know how a mailman gets in and out of there. It's going to impact our driveway. I don't know what more to say than if someone took the most valuable asset that you owned and took the functionality and the equity out of your home, would you not be upset? This will alter our property, the functionality of our property. And this is just what Jeff Anderson is a toe or something. Like, I feel like because you're doing this, you are now starting the process, and when it does come to a permanent solution, we are going to be in the same situation where we are not going to have a voice. I want transparency, I want communication, and that's all I've been asking for 17 years. And this is my worst fear, is something's going to be done, and we won't know about it until we get a phone call that said, we're going through with this regardless. So please be transparent and please consider us before you go and make a plan. Come to my house, stand in my front yard and look. Come on over. I'd love for you to come over and see what this is going to do to our property. I don't know what else. I just keep repeating myself. I'm mad.
Thank you. Just for reference, where is your home in relationship to the intersection?
615 South, Canyon Drive. My house is the white house
Up on the,
with this steeper driveway with the retaining
yep,
wall.
yep, yep.
Yeah, Stephen Brooks. So, we have been very in lengthy conversations with Brad about this. We talked years ago about making that intersection more safe. It was always too expensive. They put the lights up. We've repeated ourselves. Please let us know when it's up for debate or to talk about or whatever. We have been impacted the most, losing an east there. We live there. We see what happens there every day. And if you don't value that information, you don't use it, it's a waste. That's all.
Thank you.
I'm Kathy Kendall. I hope you won't be needed tonight. My concern is when you do the construction, they said they will close the road and divert it. Well, that's gonna go right down House Avenue. Today, my husband watched car after car after car speeding down House Avenue. Is there gonna be patrol? And are they gonna be given tickets? Because when they were doing the construction, Gary Minor did his construction, we had the cops come, they gave him warning tickets. They're not gonna slow down with a warning ticket. So I'm worried about the little kids in our neighborhood, and there are little kids in our neighborhood that could be impacted by the extra traffic coming down House Avenue. So that was one thing. Can I just add one other thing?
You bet.
Sorry.
You're good.
Okay, I work for CenturyLink. On the east side of my building at 93 East, 200 South, they probably 4 years ago put temporary asphalt down to adjust the cracks. Okay, there was a gentleman that hit it in his wheelchair going to the senior center. It threw him out of his wheelchair, broke his wheelchair. He didn't sue the city, but the city blames it on irrigation back and forth, but that sidewalk needs to be fixed because it's widely used by the senior citizens. And the temporary fix is still permanent. So, you got that address?
Thank you.
93
I
East.
think we've got it. Anything else? This is your chance to be able to,
Let's see.
That's all.
we don't take any of these things lightly, so thank you. Wayne?
Well, I appreciate everybody here. I know quite a few of you. I've known Matt all my life. I raised 4 boys on House Avenue, and Chris disciplined most all 4 of them, I think, at one time or another in school. But the day I used to talk to the police, Scott,
Gun license.
yeah. Anyway, I said, Scott, come and sit in my driveway. You can write tickets all day long. And he says, I can't park in private property. And I says, well, then just go around the corner. That road right there, where the stop sign is, should say speed up to 50. Because I'll bet you there isn't 1 in 50 cars that stop at that stop sign. That's just one issue with the roundabouts. The roundabout on 4 South and 13th East used to be the safest intersection in Utah because everybody had to stop. Everybody had to look 4 ways. Now nobody looks, and there's been multiple accidents on that roundabout. I can speak from experience because you are so focused on your left-hand side of the car that may be coming around that so that you don't interfere, you don't run into them. A lot of times you neglect to look to your right. And that's, pedestrians half of the time are gonna be coming from the right. And I've seen multiple times when kids have almost been hit because of that roundabout and because people are so focused on that. Same thing happens. I had a guy tell me one time, just a quick story. He's in Iran, he says, or Iraq, he says, you know what, you give him your finger they'll take your hand. You give them your hand, they'll take your arm. You give them their arm, you'll take your life. That's exactly what I feel like is gonna happen with this temporary roundabout. We're gonna give an inch, they're gonna take a block, we're gonna give them a block, they're gonna take a mile. And pretty soon the roundabout's gonna come right over in front of my driveway. Brad Stately told Steve and Melissa not to tell me, who was their next door neighbor on House Avenue, about anything about that roundabout 17 years ago. Brad promised me that he would keep me in the loop, that he would call me and he would talk to me. He has my home or my cell phone number. Brad, you have not contacted me one time. Not one time have you ever called me and said, we're gonna have a meeting. We wanna talk about this, we want your input. We had a meeting here, Brad had them design, BYU, the engineering department. I'm passionate about this, I apologize, but he had him design 3 different scenarios for roundabouts throughout the city, one of them being House Avenue. I caught him outside afterwards, and I brought up in the meeting, it'd be on the minutes, if there was ever any discussion about the safety factor of it, and he said no. We asked him about, Brad, about the safety factor, and he said, no, we just want a design of a roundabout. And he said, and I said, well, what about the safety in front of my house and the intersection and traffic and me having to back out of the driveway into an intersection? And he said, we never could come to grips with how we could meet that safely. We just designed the roundabout. This is just a few of the things that have taken place on that roundabout. I went and had my property surveyed 3 different times, and when I told them that that the city had a planned roundabout there, they said, well, you can expect a 30 to a 50% decrease in the value of your property. I've worked all my life for that house, and I don't expect to go down without a fight if a roundabout comes in there, and I appreciate you taking the time to hear me.
Well, thank you. We appreciate the Brooks coming here, and we're grateful that Kathy and Wayne spent some time to come here. Opinions are so important to us. You know, I hate this rostrum because we're you. You know, it looks like we sit up here like we know everything that's going on. We don't. But we try to do what's right for the city. Nothing by law can be behind closed doors. Nothing. Except real estate transactions, which obviously if it was public, somebody could take advantage of. The city buying and selling property. Personnel items or legal issues, somebody suing the city. Those are the 3 items that can only go behind closed doors. These items of roundabouts, there is no intent on anybody. And I know how you feel. I totally get it. All I can say is that our concern is for the safety of the pedestrians, and we understand the effect it has not only on you, but wait till it goes in, and people are going to be just furious driving up and down that road. I know that. And we're trying really hard to figure out a way to help protect the people that are there. It is temporary because they're going to realign these roads with the building of the high school. All I can do is look at Brad and say, Brad, I want you to make sure that they're part of the discussion because it does involve their property. And there are other property owners that are around that intersection. And that intersection may become a very minor intersection because there are other intersections that are going to become much more major. So that was the intent of doing this as a temporary thing, is just to figure out where the alignment of those roads are actually going to go and what effect and where the traffic's going to go. And you are welcome to be a part of that. Is that going to happen in 2 or 3 years? Probably. But I would just ask Brad to make sure that you're a part of these discussions. And the intent is to do the very, very best that we possibly can. And so I don't know if that helps you at all, but I just wanted to make sure that you knew a couple things in regard to meetings and also in regard to what we are trying to do, and then also what is going to be moving forward. There is no there is no decision that's been made on a permanent roundabout where Wayne's talking about. There is no decision. There's nothing been made in regard to that. And we just welcome you to be a part of that discussion. So thank you for taking the time to be here. We really do.
Mayor, can I just add one thing?
Yeah, please.
Anytime you or any other citizen has an issue that you feel like you're not being heard on, contact one of the council members. We're happy to talk to you. Our numbers are on the city website. And if you contact us individually like that, we come and talk to you. That gives us a lot more information to work on when these decisions are being made. And we certainly invite anybody to come to any of the meetings that we have. They're all open, public meetings. So please don't be afraid to contact us. That's what we're here for.
And us talking about putting this thing in temporarily, have us come up there and take a look at it. I mean, we're not afraid to sit down and we're trying to do what's right. I will tell you a secret, though. You cannot get 3 city councilmen together, then you have to post a meeting. So get the mayor and 2 of us, 2 of the city council there, and you can have 3 people there. So, yes. Uh-huh.
So this has been going on for so long. I have contacted the previous mayors and the city council, and I only had one response and one person show up.
Well, I can't.
I haven't emailed you guys.
I came to your house one day back 4 years ago. Yeah.
Okay, so where I appreciate that, I want you to come over and I want you to see it from our perspective. So with the map that he gave us, he's given us a couple of different things, but most of the time it's halfway into our front yard. And on the map, it looks pretty terrible, but it's even more terrible when you stand there and see my kids swinging over the proposed road from the tree. So I would love for you to come over and look at it.
So I take that as an invitation.
Yeah, come on over, I'll give you a
Okay, all right.
And Mayor, can I make one just passing comment?
Please.
It's not an excuse or anything. We felt highly motivated and pressured by numerous people within the community to do something to improve the safety. And I know you appreciate that. And that was our intent. And it's possible we said go ahead with this temporary thing without enough information. We understand. But our heart was, if this will help, we need to try something. So at least understand that. And we understand what you said, and it makes sense. But at least I don't think our intent wasn't to hide it. It was to, before school starts, we can get this in. Just so our intent was 100% to try to make it safer with the things that were presented from national statistics and stuff, that would help. And there was conversation about it wasn't the best for your property. But that doesn't mean we did the right decision. But we made a decision to.
Well, and I just want to say that I really do appreciate you guys meeting and trying to make it safer, because I have been calling with Louise for years and Brad about how dangerous it is. And so that's where I'm just saying, like, I do appreciate the safety, like bringing it up and trying to make it safer. I just don't think that Brad was very forthcoming with the conversations that we had for 17 years with you guys. And so that's one thing that I think that we're missing there.
Well, we appreciate it, and like I mentioned, is that we'll just make sure that they're a part of the discussion as we look at doing something permanent, temporary, to see if it does affect. I may get a little emotional here, but I couldn't bear the thought of facing a parent and saying I hadn't done something. I just couldn't. I've lived up on that end of town for 30 years, and I just couldn't do that. And so it motivated us to do something. So that was the intent of what we're trying to do. So anyway, we'll stay in touch. We'll come up and visit you. It's great. No cookies are necessary, but they're always welcome. Okay, I need a motion for the consent agenda that was presented.
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Okay, a second?
I'll second.
It's a roll call vote. Mr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Ms. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Jensen?
Yes.
Mr. Snelson?
Yes.
Okay, right. Okay, Brad, you're on. Speaking of roads,
This
that
is
have
another
safety
massive
issue.
one. 950 is rough.
Yeah, that's.
Actually, I'm
Actually,
Here to propose a suggestion.
I'm proposing pedestrian access to maybe as an alternative to riding bikes, but
You're rubbing that in, Brad.
Too soon. Too soon.
so a while back the city council asked us to look at an area of 950 West, and this is based on various things. We've got some vacant land. We've got some areas where residents can't get down to the area south of 400 South. And in fact, the area that just kind of came in here in red is an area where there's gaps in the sidewalk. And these gaps are based on the fact that there hasn't been development on some of the parcels. Other parcels are developed more agriculturally with water features and so forth. And so in actually the 22-23 budget year, the city council allotted $180,000 to try and see what we could do, how far we could get with that amount of money to get sidewalks in to help connect some of these neighborhoods. And so what we did is we got with engineering, and we looked at the first area, and maybe if I go backwards here, I don't know if I can do that. There's some areas, here's 4 South, and then there's some development, but then there's a vacant lot in this area. And we thought, well, if we could start with that area and at least try to get things going. And so what we did is we reached out to the property owner of this parcel here, and he happened to be out of the country at the time and wouldn't be back until part of July. But we got about 256 linear feet of gap in the area where there wasn't a sidewalk. It's kind of shown here in orange. But what we found was by putting this small gap of sidewalk in, we could have about 241 residential units have walking access all the way down to 400 South and then cross there at the traffic signal. That would also require some intersection crosswalk and signage just in the area just north of that, where people on the west side would cross over to the east side of the road and then work their way down through the new sidewalk and so forth. This would be paid with C-Road funds. That was what was allotted. We actually went out to bid on this project, and it's about $35,000 just to get that one segment of sidewalk in. So it's already been bid out. We've got a low bidder. The catch here was getting the easement from the property owner. And what we do, and I don't know if you remember when 7-Eleven went in on North Main, we actually got a sidewalk in there before the development occurred with some UDOT funds. And so we got what we call a sidewalk easement, to where the property owner gives an easement to have a public sidewalk put in the right place along their property, but it's not developed yet. And this would be the same thing here in this situation, is that parcel is undeveloped, but we get a sidewalk easement, which they've granted to us. And then we can put the sidewalk in, and then when he goes and develops, he still has to put the street improvements in front of the sidewalk, and the sidewalk is there already. Does that make sense, what we're doing here?
Yeah,
No-brainer.
it makes sense, Brad, but I do have a question about that. So typically we require developers to put the sidewalk in when they develop a undeveloped piece of property, when they do the development. Would this property owner be required to reimburse us
No.
for that when they go to develop, or?
Because he could wait and develop 10 years from now.
Right. Yeah, but
But
whenever,
you'd attach
the
something-
time frame's is irrelevant in terms of that. I'm just wondering if he'd be required to do that, since we wouldn't require him to do it when he develops. You see what I mean?
Yeah, and we currently don't have anything in our ordinance that allows for that, and I don't know if we could put something in our ordinance, just because he's not ready to develop, and so what we're doing is going in and getting an interest in the property so that we can put that in.
Oh, I'm totally on board with that. I was just curious as to whether or not.
No, and
there's something going on when he-
there's nothing going on right now, and I haven't looked at this issue recently, but just thinking through it, I don't know what we could do to force him down the road, and we really have nothing in our ordinance today that would require that as well. So I think it's a great question, and it would be something we'd love to do. I just don't know that we can do that today. It looks like
I think we have discussed this.
We have.
And we have discussed that very question too. And I remember some things that were said. Anyway, I'm happy that we are discussing it right now, but just wondering, in all of our discussions, how we were able to get this to happen right now. We have discussed it, and I remember that we discussed it 2 years ago when we came, and we, as council members, we were all asked to do certain projects and which projects we wanted to fund, and I guess that's the 22-23. So this is just how it has developed over that time,
Yeah, in essence.
a year and a half ago, when
Land transactions sometimes take time, especially when you're trying
Okay.
to find somebody who might be overseas.
well, I
or-
appreciate
And
it
so, I mean, it just
coming-
takes time and then getting the design work and so forth. So it's
Yes.
taken some time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I appreciate that it's here right now, because I know that it's been on all of our minds.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't take it down past halls or anything, but at least it's a start, and it's
Yeah.
35K that C Road funds are going towards. So it's a win for all citizens. I mean,
Sure.
there's no reason why we ought not do it.
And then, in fact, you talked about down the road, so let's talk about down the
Yeah,
road.
because it gets harder. The
with
further
Dutch
you
Hall.
go north, the harder it's going to get.
Right, and so one of the things, and I've had preliminary discussions with the Hall family, with the children, as they were looking at developing on their parcel, which is in this area here, right? And this was a few
We got the
years
Hutchings
ago.
on one side and the Halls on
Yeah,
the
you've
other.
got Burnell
so-
Hutchings over
yeah.
here, and you've got Dutch Hall on this side. And so I've talked with them about it. They actually have talked, I think, planning about splitting the parcel and the kids developing a little bit, or homes. But there's not a whole lot of movement. And I think in one of the cases is they're not looking at developing in the near future in this area where, that's kind of swinging. And so with that, I'm going to reach back out to them and see what their feelings are if we try to extend that sidewalk up. Now, in this segment of sidewalk is going to be a lot more difficult, because that southerly pond right here, we would probably have to, we put a concrete wall in about 18 years ago, because we had a garbage truck actually drive off into the pond. I don't think it was our garbage truck, I can't remember. And we might be able to attach a bridge on the side of it, because we need from the wall in the roadway for the width of the road. So there's going to probably need to be a bridge, and then we may have to get right of way also, because there's an elevation difference. The road is much higher on that side. So it's not going to be as simple as this 256 feet we're talking about now. And it'll probably cost more than the $145,000 that's left over. But we'll start working through that to see if we can get it further. But at least we've got in the blue area these homes to where they'll have pedestrian access to go down through and get into that, which is, I think, the intent of the council when this was brought forth a while ago.
Very good.
Can
Go
I
ahead,
just have
Liz. Yep.
one question? So you're you're doing an easement. Is that how you're going to do this, the same way?
That's a sidewalk
a
easement.
sidewalk easement. And because I have talked with the Halls before, 4 years ago, and they said to me that they would, one of the siblings said that they would give an easement to us. So I don't know if
Well,
you've talked to them
that's-
about that.
They wouldn't heartbeat if
Yeah.
we build the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Of course they
Yeah,
would.
and but realize the difficulties are way different here and getting through
Sure.
those areas.
Sure, there's solutions.
So we're excited to get this moving, and
thank you.
we're here to
Very good.
get approval.
Okay, other questions for Brad?
I just have a kind of this is a real offbeat question. But the purpose for these sidewalks is to help people in that neighborhood get over to the shopping area over there, over to Smith's and everything. What does a pedestrian bridge cost? Any idea?
So we looked at,
To get across 4 South?
above.
Yeah.
To give you an idea, the bridge they just put in at the track station in Provo, which is a pedestrian bridge, right there at the track station, South Provo, was $6 million.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was, I mean, we're talking about safety of the residents, and 4 South's a nightmare,
And that's a dangerous intersection.
particularly that intersection. So I was just thinking today, as I was going through this, what the feasibility of a pedestrian bridge would be.
Yeah.
Okay, other questions for Brad?
Oh, we're ready for a motion, aren't we?
There's no questions, and if you want to do one, yes.
I'll make a motion to approve a sidewalk easement on Utah County Parcel 23-031-0089 to allow the construction of 256 linear feet of 5-foot wide pedestrian sidewalk on 950 West, linking 241 residential units with the Smith's Commercial Center on 400 South.
A motion, I need a second.
I'll second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, very good, Brad. I'm glad to see this happen. Last I remember is that we said, well, we're gonna keep working on to get the Halls piece, so I'm glad to see us make at least some progress on that.
Yeah, when I saw it come out, I was like, sweet. Because it was 4 years ago. You're right. Because I remember that Lyle Wirt was all wrapped up about it. And
Yep.
it was a big deal.
Yep.
And we're like, we would love to, but who pays for it? So good job finding the money for it.
Yep,
Yeah.
very
thanks.
good. Okay, Josh, you wanna wrap up, or Chief Haight, do you wanna wrap up your section here on code enforcement and kinda ask the council any questions, or, was it Josh that we left it with? Okay, Josh, you're up. Sorry. No, I don't. That's way too long ago.
What are the thoughts about, I'm going to use it again, regularizing? And
There we go.
That's just because I said it was a cool word.
yeah, absolutely. And providing some more consistent or predictable standard operating procedures that would move people through the enforcement process sooner, or more predictably, and in some instances quicker, and eliminate some of the variability between different cases, and provide a clear path either to compliance or to citation that would then move into our legal department and our prosecutors and our justice court. So kind of what we're always looking to thread the needle on, that balance of taking care of enforcement issues, but providing the right balance of flexibility to let people come into compliance.
So the question on the table is, do you need more help? Is that what you're asking?
No, would you support, or how would you feel about if we took the initiative to develop some standard operating procedures to make that process more regular and predictable, and in some cases faster?
Faster and easier.
Faster and easier. Depends on which side of the equation you're on, it's the easier. But
Yeah, and refresh. Are we talking about pergola permits, or what do we? What do we? I guess I'm a little bit
zoning
lost.
code
What do we?
enforcement issues, so
Okay.
property maintenance, people
Okay.
on South State Street using their property.
Yeah.
without
So
developing
my take on it is probably where some help needs is what's it? Willardson. How do you say his last name? Willardson. Give him some help because he's solid. I had a complaint. I went online and filled one out this weekend. I mean, full disclosure. And he got back.
He came over to my house, thank you.
And
Yeah,
told
he
you
got
about
me.
it.
Yeah,
if
he
we
did.
Could just
So
get
thanks
that,
a lot.
Yeah, well, you got all that water running off. Yeah, but my point is that he's awesome. And even 4 years ago or 6 years ago, when we first came on, that officer was you guys. We did code enforcement through the building department, and I think it's been a great move to move it over to law enforcement, just because it seems to work a little bit better. And I would say if we're going to do anything, to continue to throw our efforts in that direction, because that's where it really helps neighbor relations. When instead of having to confront your neighbor and say, your lot's a pigsty, clean it up, now you have a third party that can go in and kind of help mediate that. And I think it's good for all citizens, because instead of citizens having to fight, they have a mediator. And he does a good job of that, I believe. Do you think so, Chief? He reports to you, but... Yeah. Direct, but yet not offensive. At least my experiences with him has been is that he just lays it out, and it's like, and we'll give you some time to fix it, but you got to fix it.
Yeah, he's good.
Okay, so the question on the table is whether we should be if we can go through the protocol to be able to make the process easier, simpler.
Yeah, if it's worth us undertaking the effort to
Liz?
make that more predictable.
Well, yes, I think if you're saying that you feel like you need an easier process, then I think it's up to you, so yes.
Mike?
Well, and then we talked a little bit about the educational component, if we can throw that in there so that they understand not only what they have to do, but why they have to do it the way that the code says.
Chris?
And I said earlier, I think that, like the fence ordinance, I don't think it's ever meant to make it punitive to people. I think it helps. And if these other things like a structure had some type of a early, just a permit, not a fee, just so that people are aware of the guidelines, it's not meant to make it bad. It's meant to prevent those kind of problems between the neighbors so they don't have to have Officer Willardson go out. They still will have to. Obviously, it's going to happen. So I would like, my thought, though, is for you to put together what you think is the best solution, and because we're not the experts on it, we don't know exactly how it would look, and let us see, does that make sense? Will that work? And then maybe we won't agree with everything, but for us to come up with it, I think you're asking to give you permission to do it, and my vote would be to try to at least formalize it throughout the city so that we're consistent with across the board, not just on one thing or the other. And I don't think we need to go out looking for it and try to make it punitive, but I think we can prevent some of these neighborhood squabbles rather than have to solve them if we would have some things written like the simple fence ordinance. It's not that difficult, and there are still problems with it, but I think it would help to have a little more formality across the board with the zoning.
Okay, it sounds like you maybe have a little direction here. Want me to summarize it, or you got it pretty well, so. Okay. Okay. Okay, well, let's kind of take that as one step at a time, so. Other items we need to talk about?
I did want to just
You had
bring
one
up that I have had citizens tell me that they would like our website a little bit easier to move around in and to be able to find information on. So just wondering if we could, at some point, I just have had citizens say that to me, so.
Okay.
Just pass it
Citizens
on.
out there, have you had an opportunity? Is it hard to navigate, easy to navigate, hard to navigate? Okay. Okay,
And I don't think we have a search engine anymore on there either, so.
okay, very good. We need that. Wayne and I are old enough to where we don't even go to a website because we know how to play solitaire on the computer, but that's the extent of it right there. Yes, that's right. Okay, no, that's very good. Good. Okay, well, Liz, let's make sure that we get it in the minutes and that we bring it up. So Kim, if you'll make that an item so we can talk about it when Troy's here and also Patrick is here.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Be okay?
Okay,
Anything else?
I'll remember.
Okay, I need a motion then to close. We have one personnel item and we have one real estate item.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that
I'll make a
warrants.
motion that we,
If we could, I mean, litigation too, so just to cover our whole bases.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I'll make a motion that we go into closed session to cover all of the 3 approved closed session criterias.
Okay, great. A second? And then the meeting thereafter. Second?
And in the meeting thereafter.
Those in favor?
You good?
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Thank you for coming. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.